Abandoned before the wedding, she becomes a nanny for a millionaire single dad. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us go back to the main character. She stands alone at the edge of a ballroom that still smells like fresh flowers and expensive perfume. White chairs line the aisle in perfect rows, untouched. The music has stopped. The guests have already gone. And the clock on the wall keeps moving, as if nothing important was supposed to happen here today. Her wedding dress feels heavier with every passing second. Just an hour ago, she believed this room would change her life forever. She believed the man she loved would walk toward her, take her hand, and promise that he would never leave. She believed the future was finally safe, but the groom never came. There was no argument, no dramatic confession, no last-minute explanation. There was only a message on her phone that never arrived, calls that went straight to voicemail, a silence that answered every question in the most brutal way possible. Being abandoned hurts, but being abandoned on your wedding day breaks something deeper. She walks past the altar slowly, her heels echoing against the polished floor. Each step feels unreal, like she is watching someone else live through her worst nightmare. Family members tried to comfort her. Friends whispered that it was not her fault. But none of that changes the truth she now has to carry. She was left behind, and she does not know why. By nightfall, the dress is folded and packed away. The venue is empty. The life she planned is gone. And the woman staring back at herself in the mirror does not recognize who she has become in just one day. The days that follow are quiet in a way that feels dangerous. She stops answering messages. She stops explaining what happened. She stops trusting words altogether. The apartment she once shared begins to feel too small, too full of memories that refuse to stay silent. Every corner reminds her of promises that meant nothing in the end. So she makes a decision, not a brave one, not a hopeful one, just a necessary one. She leaves. With a single suitcase and no clear plan, she drives until the city disappears behind her. She is not running towards something better. She is simply running away from the place where everything fell apart. She tells herself she does not need love anymore. She tells herself she will survive on her own, as long as she never lets anyone get close enough to hurt her again. That is when she sees the listing. A nanny position, live-in, quiet household, one child, a single father. The pay is good. The expectations are clear, no emotional involvement, just care, structure, and routine. It sounds safe. Children, she thinks, do not abandon you without warning. Children do not promise forever and disappear. She applies without overthinking it. A few days later, she stands in front of a large, gated home, gripping the strap of her bag. The house is beautiful, worth more than she can imagine, but it feels cold, too quiet. Like a place that has learned how to function without warmth. The man who opens the door is calm, composed, and distant. A successful millionaire, a single father, someone who has mastered control in every area of life except the one that matters most. He looks at her with polite caution. This is a job, he tells her, nothing more. She nods. That is exactly what she wants. What neither of them realizes yet is that this house is not just hiring a nanny. It is about to become a place where broken hearts learn how to heal. She does not unpack everything that first night. The suitcase stays half open on the floor of the small guest room, clothes folded but untouched, as if she is reminding herself that this is temporary, that she can leave at any time, that she should not get comfortable. The house is quiet in a way she has not experienced before, not the peaceful kind, the careful kind, the kind where every sound feels controlled, measured, and distant. Even the air feels expensive, filtered, untouched by real life. Down the hallway, she hears soft footsteps. The child appears slowly, stopping a few feet away. Small shoulders, careful eyes, too observant for someone so young. He does not say anything at first. He just watches her, as if trying to decide whether she belongs here or not. She kneels slightly, lowering herself to his level, keeping her hands visible, her voice calm. "Hello," she says gently. He does not answer. Instead, he looks past her, toward the hallway, checking whether his father is watching. Then he looks back at her again. The silence stretches, but she does not rush it. She has learned, the hard way, that trust does not respond well to pressure. Eventually, he nods once, a small, cautious movement. That is all. Later that evening, she meets the man of the house again. He stands in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, reviewing something on his tablet. He barely looks up when she enters, as if he already expects her to follow the rules without being reminded. He explains the schedule, the routines, the expectations. His voice is calm, professional, emotionally distant. He tells her his son does not like change, that the last nanny did not last long, that this arrangement will only work if boundaries are respected. She listens quietly, nodding when appropriate, asking only practical questions. She does not mention her past. She does not mention the wedding. She does not mention why she needed this job so badly. When he finishes, there is a pause. "This is not a family situation," he says finally. "This is employment." "I understand," she replies without hesitation. And she does, because right now, she is not looking for a family. She is looking for something stable, something that does not promise more than it can give. The next morning begins early. She wakes before the house, her body still wired from unfamiliar surroundings. She dresses simply, choosing comfort over style, practicality over appearance. In the kitchen, she prepares breakfast quietly, following the instructions she was given. Nothing fancy, nothing emotional, just food. The child sits at the table, feet swinging slightly beneath the chair. He eats without complaint but without enthusiasm. She notices how he avoids eye contact, how his movements are careful, restrained, as if he has learned not to take up too much space. She does not ask questions. She does not try to entertain him. She simply stays present. After breakfast, she helps him with his backpack. He hesitates when she reaches for it, then relaxes when she steps back and lets him hand it to her instead. A small adjustment, a small victory. When the father leaves for work, the house grows even quieter. It is just the two of them now. They spend the morning doing simple things, reading, drawing, sitting side by side without speaking. There is no laughter yet, no sudden bond, just time moving forward at a steady, unthreatening pace. She realizes, sometime around noon, that she feels different here, not happy, but calm. No one is asking her about her past. No one is expecting her to explain her pain. No one is promising her forever and then disappearing without warning. The expectations are clear. The boundaries are firm. For the first time since the wedding that never happened, her chest does not feel tight. That night, after the child is asleep, she stands alone in her room again. She takes her phone from her bag, hesitates, then turns it off completely. She places it in a drawer and closes it. She sits on the edge of the bed and exhales slowly. This place is not home, but it is safe, and for now, that is enough. What she does not know yet is that safety, when given time, has a way of becoming something else entirely. The rhythm of the house settles into something predictable. Days begin to follow a quiet pattern. Mornings are soft and unhurried. Afternoons pass with books spread across the living room floor and sunlight drifting through tall windows. Evenings arrive gently, without raised voices or slammed doors. Everything here moves carefully, as if the walls themselves are afraid of breaking the fragile peace they have found. She learns the house the way one learns a new language. Which steps creak on the staircase, which cabinet sticks if opened too quickly, which light the child prefers on at night. She memorizes these details without realizing it, not because anyone asks her to, but because paying attention feels safer than thinking about anything else. The child watches her closely, not with suspicion anymore, but with curiosity. He begins to sit closer during reading time. He asks small questions, nothing personal, nothing risky. What is your favorite color? Do you like dogs? Can you read that page again? She answers simply, honestly. She never forces conversation. When he pulls away, she lets him. When he returns, she makes space. Trust, she knows, is not built by insisting. It is built by staying. The father observes all of this from a distance. He notices the absence of conflict first. No complaints, no emotional scenes, no calls asking for time off or special favors. The house functions. His son eats, sleeps, completes his homework without resistance. That alone earns his respect. Still, he keeps his guard up. He speaks to her politely, briefly, usually in passing. He asks about schedules, logistics, practical matters. He never asks about her life. She never volunteers information. There is an unspoken agreement between them, one that feels almost relieving. They do not owe each other explanations. One afternoon, everything shifts in a way none of them expect. The child refuses to get ready for school. He sits on the edge of his bed, backpack untouched, eyes fixed on the floor. His shoulders tense when she kneels nearby. She does not rush him. She does not raise her voice. She simply waits. After a long silence, he speaks, barely above a whisper. "I do not like when people leave." The words land quietly, but their weight fills the room. She understands immediately. Not the details, but the feeling, the fear beneath it, the memory of someone important disappearing without warning. She takes a slow breath. "I do not like that either," she says. She does not promise that she will stay forever. She does not say things will never change. She only says what she knows to be true. "I am here today," she continues, "and tomorrow I will be here too." He looks up at her then, really looks at her, as if testing whether those words can be trusted. A few moments later, he stands and reaches for his backpack on his own. That night, the father notices something different. His son laughs at dinner, just once, briefly, but it is real. It catches him off guard, freezes him mid-sentence. He watches the exchange between them carefully, the way she does not draw attention to it, the way she allows the moment to pass without trying to hold on to it. After the child goes to bed, the father speaks to her again. "Thank you," he says. His tone is restrained but sincere. She nods. He had a hard day. "So did you," he replies, surprising her. For a second, the distance between them feels smaller, not intimate, just human. That night, alone in her room, she opens her suitcase fully for the first time. She hangs a few more clothes in the closet. She places her shoes neatly by the door. It is a small act, a practical one, but it is also the first time she allows herself to believe she might stay longer than she planned. What she does not realize yet is that she is not the only one beginning to adjust. In a house that has learned to survive without warmth, something quiet is starting to grow. By the second week, the house no longer feels like a place she is passing through. It still does not feel like home, but it no longer feels foreign either. The silence has softened. The rooms have learned her footsteps. Even the mornings seem to wait for her now. Her days begin the same way. She wakes before the child, prepares breakfast, and opens the curtains just enough to let light in without flooding the room. She hums quietly while the coffee brews. Not a song, just a sound. Something steady and unremarkable. Something safe. The child notices everything. He begins to come into the kitchen on his own, rubbing his eyes, hair still uneven from sleep. He sits at the table without being told. Sometimes he talks. Sometimes he does not. She never points it out. She never asks why. After breakfast, they follow a routine that belongs only to them now. Reading on the couch, homework at the dining table, short walks in the yard when the weather allows. She lets him choose the pace, the activity, the silence. When he grows restless, she suggests drawing. When he grows quiet, she sits beside him without asking questions. There is comfort in repetition. For her, these routines do something unexpected. They slow her thoughts. The memories that once rushed in without warning begin to lose their grip. The image of the empty wedding aisle no longer appears every time she closes her eyes. The questions that haunted her, what did I do wrong? Why was I not enough? Begin to fade into the background. Not because they have been answered, but because something else is taking up space. Presence. In the evenings, the father returns home later than he says he will. Work always pulls at him. Meetings, calls, deadlines that do not wait. Still, he notices the changes. His son meets him at the door more often now. The house smells like food instead of emptiness. There is a sense of order that does not feel rigid, but lived in. He watches from the doorway as she helps his son with homework, her voice patient, her posture relaxed. She does not correct harshly. She does not praise excessively. She treats success and mistakes with the same calm attention. He has not seen that before. One night, he sits with them at the table longer than usual. He listens more than he speaks. When his son finishes eating, he does not rush away. He stays, drawing quietly, while the adults talk about schedules and school events. It feels ordinary, and that unsettles him more than chaos ever did. Later, after the child is asleep, the father pauses in the hallway as she passes. "He has been sleeping better," he says. She nods. He feels more settled. How did you manage that? She thinks for a moment. I did not try to manage it. I just stayed consistent. The word lingers between them. Consistent. He nods once, as if committing it to memory. That night, alone again, she opens a small box she has kept buried in her bag. Inside is a folded piece of fabric. Lace. Soft. White. Her wedding veil. She looks at it without anger, without tears, just acknowledgement. Then she folds it carefully and places it back in the box. Not because she is ready to let it go forever, but because it no longer needs to be within reach. Down the hall, the father stands in his son's doorway, watching him sleep. He notices the way the child's hands are relaxed now, unclenched. He cannot remember the last time that was true. For the first time in a long while, he allows himself to consider something dangerous. What if stability does not come from control? What if it comes from care? In a house once ruled by silence and distance, routines have begun to stitch together something fragile but real, and none of them are ready to admit how much they need it. Something subtle changes between the two adults after that night. There is no announcement, no conversation that names it, but the space between them begins to feel different, less guarded, less sharp around the edges. They start crossing paths more often. Sometimes it is early in the morning, when she is packing the child's lunch, and he is already dressed for work, tie loosened, coffee in hand. Sometimes it is late at night, when she is returning a book to the shelf, and he is passing through the hallway, phone finally silent. Their exchanges remain simple, a nod, a quiet thank you, a brief update about the child's day. But beneath the surface, something is shifting. One evening, the power goes out during a storm. The house plunges into darkness, followed by the distant rumble of thunder. The child startles, dropping his pencil, eyes wide with sudden fear. Before she can say anything, he reaches for her hand. She squeezes gently. "It is just the lights," she says. "We are safe." The father appears moments later, flashlight in hand. He stops when he sees them sitting together on the floor, candles already lit, the child calm again, leaning slightly into her side. "You handled that well," he says quietly. She shrugs. Storms pass. He looks at her for a moment longer than necessary, as if considering something he has avoided thinking about. Later, when the lights return and the child is asleep, they sit at opposite ends of the kitchen table. Not facing each other, just sharing the same space. "You never panic," he says suddenly. She thinks about it. "I do. I just do it silently." That earns a small smile from him, the first she has seen. It is brief, almost accidental, but it stays with her. Over the next few days, they begin to talk more. Still not about the past, still not about feelings, but about things that matter. He mentions how difficult it was after his wife passed away, how the house felt too large, too quiet, how he focused on work because it was easier than feeling anything at all. She listens without interrupting, without trying to fix it. When it is her turn, she keeps her words measured. She does not describe the wedding in detail. She does not name the man who left. She only says what matters. "I stopped believing people meant what they promised," she says. He nods. He understands that kind of loss. Their conversations never linger too long. One of them always leaves first, as if they are both aware of a line they are not ready to cross. But something important is happening. They are beginning to see each other not as roles, not as employer and employee, not as broken people trying to survive, but as individuals who know what it means to lose something that mattered. One afternoon, the child brings home a drawing from school. It shows 3 figures standing together, one tall, one smaller, one in between. The child hands it to her first. "This is us," he says simply. She feels her throat tighten, but she keeps her voice steady. It is a nice picture. When the father sees it later, he does not say anything at first. He studies it carefully, then places it on the refrigerator with a magnet. That night, after the child is asleep, he lingers in the kitchen doorway. "You did not have to stay," he says. "Many people would not." She meets his eyes. "I know." He nods slowly. "I am glad you did. It is not a confession. It is not a promise, but it is something honest." And for both of them, that feels far more dangerous than love ever did. The shift comes quietly, the way most painful things do. It begins on an ordinary afternoon, one that looks no different from the others. The child is at the table, working on a school project. She is nearby, sorting papers, half listening as he hums to himself. The house feels steady, familiar, safe. Then the question comes. Why did your wedding not happen? It is spoken without malice, without judgment, just a child's honest curiosity, triggered by something he overheard at school. A classmate talking about weddings, families, promises. The words catch her off guard, her hands still. Her breath stops for a fraction of a second. She had not planned for this moment. She had carefully built her days here around what she could handle, around what she could give. She was not prepared to explain her own heartbreak out loud. She lowers herself into the chair across from him, keeping her voice even. Sometimes, she says slowly, people say they are ready for something, but they are not. He studies her face. Did he forget? The question lands harder than anything else. No, she answers truthfully. He chose not to come. The child nods, absorbing this in his own way. That hurts, he says. Yes, she agrees. It does. There is no drama in the moment, no tears, but something inside her shifts. The careful wall she built to keep the pain at a manageable distance begins to crack. Later that evening, after the child is asleep, she retreats to her room earlier than usual. She closes the door softly and leans against it, pressing her palm to the wood as if grounding herself. The memories return without warning. The empty aisle, the unanswered phone, the moment she realized she had been waiting alone. Her chest tightens. Her breathing becomes shallow. She sits on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, willing the feeling to pass. It does not. A knock sounds at the door. She does not answer at first. Then the door opens slightly. The father stands there, concern written plainly across his face. He does not step inside. He does not demand anything. I heard you come in early, he says. Are you all right? She hesitates. This is the moment she usually deflects, changes the subject, pretends she is fine. But tonight, the weight is too heavy. I am not, she admits. The words surprise them both. He nods once and sits on the chair across from her, leaving space between them, respecting the boundary even now. She tells him what she has never said out loud. Not every detail, not every wound, just the truth. That morning, she says, I believed my life was finally starting, and then it ended before it began. He listens. He does not interrupt. He does not offer solutions. When she finishes, the room feels quieter than before. I thought if I stayed busy, she continues, if I took care of other people, the pain would stay quiet too. And did it? He asks. She shakes her head slightly. It helped, but it did not disappear. He leans back, considering this. Grief does not vanish, he says. It waits, and then it asks to be. The honesty they shared opens something neither of them knows how to close again. She becomes more careful. She double-checks schedules, keeps conversations shorter, avoids lingering in shared spaces when the father is home. She tells herself she is being professional, but the truth is harder to face. Getting close has started to feel dangerous. At night, she lies awake replaying his words, his quiet understanding, the way he listened without judgment. It unsettles her. Because understanding creates attachment, and attachment creates expectations. And expectations are where everything went wrong before. One afternoon, she overhears a phone call by accident. The father is in his office, voice low but firm. He is speaking to someone about travel, about a possible move, about opportunities that would require long hours and significant changes. I need to think about what is best for my son, he says. The words twist something in her chest. Best for my son, not best for us, not even best for me. She realizes then how easy it would be to disappear from this life. How easily she could be replaced. A different nanny, a different routine. The house would continue to function. She tells herself she knew this from the beginning. That night, she sits alone with her suitcase open on the bed. The same suitcase she once promised herself she would keep half-packed. Her hands move slowly, folding clothes with careful precision. She is not running away. She is protecting herself. The next morning, the child notices immediately. You are quiet, he says at breakfast. She forces a small smile. I am just thinking. He frowns. Are you leaving? The question hits her harder than she expects. She kneels beside him, heart pounding. No, not today. But she does not say tomorrow. When the father returns home that evening, she asks to speak with him. They stand in the living room, the space between them measured, deliberate. "I need to be honest," she begins. "I did not come here planning to stay forever." He nods slowly. "I know. This place has been good for me," she continues. "But I am afraid of staying somewhere that feels like it matters." He looks at her carefully. "Because you might lose it?" "Yes," she admits, "and because I might start wanting more than I can handle." The silence that follows is heavy. "My son has already lost someone," he says quietly. "I cannot let him lose another." The words are not cruel. They are honest. She feels them settle between them like an unspoken boundary. That night, she finishes packing. She does not leave a note. She does not say goodbye. She only plans to speak in the morning, to explain calmly, to make the transition as gentle as possible. But when morning comes, the child is already awake. He stands in the doorway of her room, eyes fixed on the suitcase. "You said you would be here," he whispers. Her heart breaks in a way she did not expect. She kneels in front of him, fighting tears. "I am here right now." "But will you stay?" he asks. She cannot answer. Down the hall, the father watches silently, realizing too late that his fear of loss has created the very thing he was trying to prevent. In trying to protect their hearts, all three of them are standing on the edge of another goodbye. And this time, no one is sure who is going to walk away. The decision is made without speeches, without dramatic gestures. It happens in the quietest moment of the morning. The child is sitting at the kitchen table, untouched cereal growing soggy in the bowl. She stands near the counter, her packed suitcase resting against the wall like a silent threat. No one is speaking. Every sound feels too loud. Then the father enters the room. He looks at the suitcase first, then at his son, then at her. For a moment, he does not say anything. He has spent years solving problems with contracts, strategies, and control. None of that helps him now. "You are leaving," he says finally. She nods. "I think it might be best." "For who?" he asks. The question is not sharp. It is not defensive. It is tired, honest. She hesitates. "For everyone." The child pushes his chair back and stands. His hands are clenched at his sides. "You said you were here," he says, his voice shaking. "You said tomorrow, too." She kneels in front of him, heart breaking open. "I am scared," she admits softly. "And when adults get scared, we sometimes make choices that feel safer, even when they hurt." He looks at her, eyes glossy. "I do not want safe. I want you." The words land harder than any argument ever could. The father feels something give way inside him. In that moment, he understands the truth he has been avoiding. Safety without connection is not protection. It is isolation. And he has already seen what isolation does to his child. He steps forward. "I have been wrong," he says quietly. She looks up, startled. "I thought protecting my son meant never letting him risk another loss," he continues. "But I see now that keeping people at a distance is its own kind of loss." He kneels too, bringing himself to their level. "I cannot promise that no one will ever leave," he says to his son. "But I can promise that we will not push people away just because we are afraid." Then he turns to her. "I am not asking you to stay forever," he says. "I am asking you to stay because you choose to, and because we choose you too." The room is silent. She feels the weight of the moment press against her chest. Every instinct tells her to retreat, to choose the familiar pain of leaving over the terrifying hope of staying. But then she looks at the child, at the way he watches her, not demanding, not manipulating, just hoping. She takes a slow breath. "I can stay," she says, "not because I am not afraid, but because I am tired of letting fear decide my life." The child steps forward and wraps his arms around her without asking. The father watches, emotion tightening his throat. The suitcase remains where it is, unmoved. That evening, the house feels different. Not perfect, not healed, but chosen. They eat dinner together, lingering at the table longer than usual. The child talks about school. The father listens. She laughs once, surprised by the sound of her own voice. Later, as the child sleeps, the two adults stand in the hallway. "Thank you," he says. She shakes her head gently. "We all took a risk." He nods. "And we will take it one day at a time." For the first time, that feels enough. In a house once ruled by fear of loss, a new agreement has been made. Not to promise forever, but to stay. The house does not change overnight. There is no sudden transformation, no perfect happiness that arrives all at once. Healing, she has learned, does not work that way. It comes quietly, through ordinary moments that slowly begin to mean more than they once did. Weeks pass. The routines remain, but they feel lighter now. Breakfasts stretch a little longer. Conversations come more easily. The child no longer hesitates before speaking. He asks questions. He laughs freely. He stops checking doorways to see who might leave next. One afternoon, she watches him run across the yard, carefree, calling for his father to look. The sound of his laughter stops her in place. It is full and unguarded, the way it should have always been. She realizes something then. She is no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. The wedding dress, once folded away in a box, is gone now. Not thrown out, not destroyed. Simply donated, passed on to someone else who might still believe in beginnings. The veil no longer belongs to her story, and that feels right. The father changes too, in ways that are not dramatic but unmistakable. He leaves work earlier when he can. He attends school events. He listens more than he speaks. The walls he built so carefully begin to lower, brick by brick. One evening, as they sit together on the porch watching the sky fade into soft shades of blue and gold, he speaks without looking at her. "I used to believe love was something you managed," he says, "something you controlled so it would not hurt you." She nods. "I believed love was something you earned by being enough." They sit with that truth between them. "And now?" he asks. She thinks for a moment. "Now I think love is something you practice, every day." He turns to her then, really seeing her. They do not rush anything. There is no dramatic confession, no sudden promise of forever. When their hands brush, it is tentative, intentional. When they finally hold each other, it is not out of desperation, but recognition. This is not rescue, this is choice. On a quiet morning months later, the three of them sit together at the kitchen table. The child is drawing again. This time, the picture looks different. 3 figures, closer now. Lines overlapping, a shared space. She watches as the father places the drawing on the refrigerator, right beside the first one. "We have come a long way," he says softly. She smiles. "We are still learning." He reaches for her hand, not to claim her, not to promise what neither of them can guarantee, but to say something simpler and stronger. "I am glad you stayed." She squeezes his hand gently. "So am I." In the end, she did not find love by searching for it. She found it by healing, by staying when leaving felt easier, by choosing presence over fear. And in a house that once knew only loss, a family was not rebuilt through grand gestures or perfect endings, but through something far more powerful: consistency, honesty, and the courage to stay.